Hey, Shalom, welcome to Vakama Kapash from GMS London, giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Kwadash. Want to give double honors unto the elders, the apostles of GMS, and Shalom out there to the whole Israelites, pushing his truth in all sincerity. Pardon me. Yeah, back again with another video, Salakia, right? This is going to be based on the scripture here from Hebrews chapter 13, right? Because you got people out there that just think that Israelites are only in Israel or only in Jerusalem, and they don't exist nowhere else in the world, and therefore when he talks about the other nations and the peoples, that it couldn't possibly be an Israelite. It had to be an actual person from that country, as in the said case of Cornelius, who is from, as he mentioned, he's from the Italian band, right? Because he was Italian, he automatically was a so-called white person. Why? Well, maybe it's just, them being racist, right? Because that's what Esau does. Everybody is white, right? But, our people lived in many different parts of the world at this point in time. Okay, the scattering had long taken place amongst our people. And so we was in all these different places in the earth. All right? So just to automatically assume that Cornelius is an Edomite or a so-called white man, or because he's Italian, is ignorant, right? Is ignorant, because it's one thing's clear in these scriptures. The salvation and this gospel is not for anybody else but the Israelites, and so we know automatically, no matter where this person was from, no matter what they're being called, these people that were being called to the truth were Israelites, right? So we know that for a fact because we know these scriptures, right? And so we're just going to go into a little bit of this and show you the proof, right? So, again, this is the book of Hebrews, right? Written to Hebrews, right? And right at the end of this, Hebrews chapter 13 here, reading verse 24, right? It says, salute all them that have the rule over you and all the saints, right? The saints are Israelites, right? They of Italy salute you, right? It says, grace be with you all, amen. Now, in the parenthesis here at the bottom, it says, written to the Hebrews from Italy by Timothy. All right. So there's Hebrew Israelites in Italy, right? And this is who this letter was written to, as are all the letters, as all the epistles are written to Israelites in different regions, in Galatia, in Corinthian, Corinth, that's the one, right? These are all letters written to Israelites or churches, Israelite churches. All right. None of them are for the heathen in these lands. All right. This truth is not for them. All right. So again, they were being saluted. Hebrews in Italy, right? James 1:1, which is the next book across from Hebrews, says, James, a servant of God and of the Lord Yahweh Shai Mashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, because we were abroad, we were in all these different lands, right? But why is James only writing to the 12 tribes? Because that's who it's for, as Paul stated. Was it Romans 8, right? Double check that. All these things pertain unto Israel, okay? No, 9, right? Romans 9. It says, for I wish that myself were accursed from Yahweh Shai, from my brethren, my kinsmen according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption and the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the service of God and the promises. This whole truth, all these gospels, this whole Bible is our book. Everything is contained here belongs to us. It doesn't belong to nobody else, right? So obviously these are who Paul and Timothy and all these different people were writing to. James, Peter, writing to Israelites in these different regions. Okay. Acts chapter 10, verse 1. It says, there was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, right? A centurion of the band called the Italian band, right? A devout man, one that feared God. Now these already eliminate majority of people. Well, all people aside from Israelites, because other nations didn't worship our God, nor feared our God. You know? So one that feared God with all his house, which gave much alms to the people, and prayed to God always, right? And so again, because, initially when this is read, because what people assume, right? Because it says Cornelius was of the Italian band, that Cornelius was Italian. Now he may be Italian as an Italian, citizen as such, if that is where he was from, in the region he was born in or grew up in, or he had citizenship there, just like Paul had Roman citizenship, right? You can call him a dual nationalist, or whatever terms you want to kind of put on it that exists today. That's what it is. But by lineage, by bloodline, he was an Israelite of a particular tribe, just like Paul was of the tribe of Benjamin, right? As he stated, right? But he's also a citizen of Rome. Okay, he had his papers, right? His identities, right? His IDs. Okay, but because he was being called off the Italian band, they automatically assumed that he was a so-called white man. Okay, i.e. an Edomite. Okay, how can you make that assumption based on what here? Just because he's from the Italian band? That's racist. Right? And again, like I said, it's ignorant. Ignorant for the fact you don't know the scriptures, and ignorant for the fact that like many people lived in Italy. Many different types of people in Rome. Rome was bringing all kinds of people from all different kinds of regions into Rome, slaves and all kinds of things. Like Rome was a metropolis, just like America or London is. It's just a bag full of people, different people from different regions, different parts of the world. So it is complete ignorance, man. And just really adds to that whole white supremacy type thing. Like, oh, Edomites can be saved. White people can be saved. No, you can't. If you're an Edomite, you cannot be saved. If you're a heathen, you cannot be saved. Right? This salvation is for the Israelites, as it has always been stated in the scriptures. Right? Yahweh came to save his people from their sins. Right? Nobody else. Okay. Cornelius is from had the band called the Italian band, right? So yeah, you can say it's from Italy, right? Fine, that's all good. It doesn't mean he's not an Israelite, because quite evidently Israelites were there, right, in these different places. Okay. Pardon me, as we just established that there was Hebrews in Italy. All right, so Acts 2 and 5 says, and they were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, Israelites, right? Various tribes, although mainly from Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, majority, because the other 10 tribes had already left and gone into the New World, okay, i.e. Americas, okay? But Israelites none the same, right? Devout men out of every nation under heaven, right? That word devout again. I mentioned that Cornelius was a devout man, right? So he would have been included in this, ultimately, right? He categorized by this, right? Verse 6, and now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, behold, are not all these which speak Galileans, right? Now, how hear we every man in our own tongue where we were born, right? So we've got Israelites being born in these different lands, right? Speaking, the language of that land, right? Foreign tongues, different tongues, right? This is Parthians and Medes. These are the examples of the places they were coming out of, right? Parthians and Medes and Elamites and dwellers in Mesopotamia and in Judea and Cappadocia, in Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, in Egypt and in parts of Libya about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome. Rome's in Italy, right? Strangers of Rome, right? Because a lot of these if you know the history, which we're going to touch on just a tiny bit of it, but you had a lot of Israelites leave off from serving the law, statutes, commandments, and basically forsake their identity, right? And became heathens, became Greeks, right, as a time, right, and just basically devolved into these different nations, man, and just grew up being whatever they were, and so they became strangers, right? So all these, some of them knew, men that were coming. Obviously, some of these knew already because they came to hold the feast, right? So they would have known they were Israelites, and then they were just coming back because they knew they were supposed to hold the feast days, certain the feast days there, right? But then some of them weren't, right? So the strangers of Rome, because Rome was occupying, right? So then strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians, we do hear them speak in our tongues the wonderful works of God, right? Because the men in Judea had no business learning or knowing all these languages because they just didn't, right? That's why it was a miracle. Man was speaking all, in these different tongues, right? And they all heard it as if they were being spoken to in their own language, when they were speaking. All right. So, like I said, Israelites, the Hebrews, the Hebrew Israelites, right? They were always in these different lands. We've been there for a long time, right? So to make an assumption just because you come out of a certain land, meant that they were of another nation, like i.e., not an Israelite, is incorrect. Like, say if you had known the scriptures properly, you would know that this message is only for the Israelites. So whoever came out of these different nations must be an Israelite. Okay, but obviously the world has Christianity has their pseudo doctrines that the Lord came to save everybody, and so everybody must be included. But we don't teach that madness because it's simply not true, right? But Israelites are in these different lands, okay, and we're being drawn out of them, okay, to this truth, all right. So let me grab this in Revelation chapter 7 verse 9, and so the first part of this is breaking down the elect, right? 12,000 from each tribe, because the tribes are important, because if they wasn't, they wouldn't be mentioned, right? So it's all about the seed of Israel, right? And then we have the rest of the chosen, the 1/3, right? And this is what it's going into, right? So Revelation 7 verse 9 says, after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues. Well, what did we read in second Acts? Right? And they were dwelling at Jerusalem, Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. Different tongues and all kinds of things, right? This is what Revelations is speaking about. Right? These Israelites from all these different nations. Okay? Not the heathen, right? After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and peoples and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Right? And they cried with a loud voice, saying, salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne and unto the Lamb. And all the angels stood around about the throne and about the elders and the 4 beasts, and fell before the throne of their faces and worshipped God, saying, amen, blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be unto our God forever and ever. Amen. So then one of the elders answered and saying unto me, what are these that are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto them, sir, thou knowest. And he said unto me, these are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. All right. Now this reminds me of another scripture, right, which is 2nd Ezra chapter 2 and verse 40, right? And it says here, take thy number, O Zion, which is Israel, the monument, right? And shut up those of thine that are clothed in white, which have fulfilled the law of the Lord. The number of thy children, whom thou longest for, is fulfilled. We just read about, or just heard about the number in Revelation 7, right? The number of them, right? What does it say? Verse 4, and I heard the number of them that were sealed, right? Like I said, it starts off with that 12,000 of each tribe, and then it goes on to the rest of the 1/3 that were delivered from the lands of America, right? So, keep doing that. So this lines up with that, right? 2nd Ezra 2 and 40, right? To take thy number, O Zion, and shut up those of thine that are clothed in white, which have fulfilled the law of the Lord. And the number of thy children whom thou longest for is fulfilled, sealed, right? Beseech the power of the Lord that thy people, which that have been called from the beginning, may be hallowed. Right? And we was that people called from the beginning. Okay? I, Ezra, saw upon Mount Zion a great people whom I could not number. Okay, Revelation 7 again, a great number of people, right? And they all praised the Lord with songs. In the midst of them there was a young man of a high stature, taller than all the rest, and upon every one of their heads he set crowns. Okay, palms in the hands, and that's the same type of thing, right? And he was more exalted, at which I marveled at greatly. So I asked the angel and said, Sir, what are these? And he answered and said unto me, These be they that have put off the mortal clothing, and put on the immortal, and have confessed the name of God. Now, so every time we bring out this scripture, we always end up coming back to the name. It's mentioned so much in the scriptures about the name of the Lord and knowing the name of the Lord and be able to confess the name of the Lord. You can't confess something you don't know. You can't profess, confess, pray to. You can't do none of these things without knowing the name of the Lord. Like, you're really screwed if you don't know the name of the Lord, man. Which is dumb, because you imagine if the Lord is dealing with you, that the Lord will give you his name for you to be able to do these things. People claim that they don't know the names, or we can't know the names, or whatever the case may be, then you're shit out of luck, man. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, you got no hope. you know. Where is it? So I asked the angel and said, Sir, what are these? And he answered and said unto me, These be they that have put off the mortal clothing and put on the immortal, and have confessed the name of God. Now are they crowned and receive palms. Right? Then said I unto the angel, What young person is this? Is it that crowneth them and giveth them palms in their hands? So he answered and said unto me, It is the Son of God, whom they have confessed in the world. Then began I greatly to commend them that stood so stiffly for the name of the Lord. There's the name again. Then the angel said unto me, Go thy way and tell my people. Whose people? My people. Right? Because again, it's all addressed to Israel. Because Israel is an Israelite, right? Go away and tell my people what manner of things and how great wonders of the Lord thy God. Go thy way and tell my people, because the Lord's people is the Israelites, what manner of things and how great wonders of the Lord thy power thou hast seen. The Lord never told Ezra to go and tell everybody, just his people, right? Zion. Okay, and so that links directly with Revelation chapter 7. Right? That's what the many people, the number of kindreds and multitudes and nations and tongues, that's what he's talking about. Okay, the Israelites that were scattered in all these different nations. Right? Because like I said, if you know a bit, a little bit about the history, you understand how this came to be. Because I'm going to jump on a couple of scriptures here. Right? This is Ephesians chapter 2, verse 11. Wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh. Right? Because they disassociated themselves with being Israel. They became Greek. Right? So they became foreigners. They became Gentiles. Pardon me. They're making themselves uncircumcised and all kind of things, right? So it goes on to say, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision, right? So the people calling them uncircumcised were the circumcised, which the circumcised represents the Jews in Judea. Right? Those that kept to the customs, kept to the laws, kept their way of living, right? And they were calling the Israelites that left and became like the Gentiles, they were calling them uncircumcised. Right? Who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands. Right? So there's a great big divide between the Jews in Judea and the Jews that left, right? That became Greeks and whatever, right? That at that time you were without Yahweh, being aliens, foreigners, strangers, whatever word you want to put there, right? From the commonwealth of Israel, because they departed, and many generations have passed, right? So, generations have come and gone. And so they don't know nothing else. Right? These are not even the same, families that broke away, that caused the Great Division. But these are the children that that came on afterwards. It's like they don't really know too much about them being Israelites and that kind of business. Right? So they were complete strangers. Right? They considered themselves Greek before anything else. So that had to be, kind of worked out. And much like today, in this modern era that we're in, coming into this truth, man, we all just, well, we didn't know shit. Okay, we we believe to be whatever we was, that our families brought us up to be, British, American, and all these different things, different ways, different customs, and whatever. We know nothing about being an Israelite. We didn't know nothing about the promises or didn't know nothing, right? It's the same here, same in this situation. So we were strangers, right? Being aliens from the Commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. But now in Yahushua Mashiach, ye who sometimes were far off are made nigh by the blood of Yahushua. For he is our peace, who have made both one and have broken down the middle wall of partition between us. Right? Because like I said, that whole, Israelite descent and the splitting up, going into the ways of the Greeks, so that caused great division in Israel. It made us weak, man. A lot of betrayal happened, man. A lot of bad blood, a lot of death, right, occurred over that. Okay, so there was a great war of partition between us, man, and that's why the Jews in Judea, especially like from the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and that they didn't want us dealing with them. That's why Peter said it's unlawful to deal with one of another nation, because that's what they were considered being of another nation. Right? It was that contentious, and that's why there was all these problems about those men coming into the ministry. That's what the fuss was about. Not because these men were actual heathens, right? It says, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law commandments. So why was there enmity? Because of what happened, because of the history. Right? Having abolished in his flesh and the enmity, even the law commandments contained in the ordinances, for to make him in himself of twain one new man, so making peace, that he might reconcile both unto God in one body by the cross, having slain the enmity thereby. Okay, so not only are we, we're both being reconciled, but we're being reconciled together also. And then again, it's the same thing with the rest of the tribes over there in the Americas. We don't really, up until this time, we had no dealings with each other, so we wouldn't have even known each other like that. Okay, that's why the relationship between the tribes is contentious, because we're made separate, for lack of better words. We weren't getting along. All right, so we'll be seen as strangers, man. And it's only through this word that we're coming back to one another, in the spirit. We don't see ourselves as separate entities anymore. Like, we consider ourselves that, we're all part of the same family. Now, the carnal of our people, obviously, they're still going to be, separate, right? They're not going to see us, see each other, or see us as all the same. But those of us that know that are spiritual, we know we're of the same family, right? But we have these divisions between us. But all that's going to be destroyed, these middle walls of petition, they're going to be destroyed, okay? When Yahushua returns, like, fully, okay? What was I? Verse 17, and came and preached peace to you which were afar off, and to them that were nigh. Far off, because it is like scattered, right? For through him we both have access by one Spirit unto the Father. Now therefore ye are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of God, because they were part of the household originally anyway, right? But because you were out there doing some craziness, some Greek craziness over there, you were basically kept away. Okay, but now you're being drawn back in. Okay, so you're no longer strangers and no more foreigners. Right, so then built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Yahushua Mashiach himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom all the building fitly framed together groweth unto a holy temple in the Lord, in whom ye also are builded together for an habitation of God through the Spirit. All right, so that was kind of the atmosphere at that time, right? Because of things that happened between us in the past. Okay, we was not a united people by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, this is why, this is part of the curses. We was all divided, essentially. but we had a core group of us in Judea, but we was under occupation, you know. But other Israelites turned away and became Greeks, and like I said, many generations that passed up until when Rome came into power and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of things had happened up until that time, right? And this is First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 11. So you want to hear the history, then just read this, right? And you can see how things ended up the way they were, and why how things why things the way they were, in the Lord's time. It's First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 11. It said, in those days, let me read up 10. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 37th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go out, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us, for since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. So you need to think, all the Jews in Judea, how they looked at these castaway Israelites, or these turnbacks, these traitors, right? They looked at them just like that, traitors or wicked men. All right. So then certain of the people were so forward therein, so headlong into doing this wickedness, right? They went to the king, who gave them license to give them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen, to do after their ways, right? To participate in the things that they did, right? Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, right? And the customs of the heathen at the time, this place of exercise, which is gymnos, which means naked, is just that. They used to exercise naked, right? Balls out, the whole all of that, right? And they wanted to be a part of that. Okay, but the problem being that you was, as an Israelite man, you was easily identified because you circumcised yourself. So when you went to these gyms, yeah, they knew who you were, and so they would treat you differently, or not let you in, or whatever the case may be, right? So what they decided to do is to uncircumcise themselves, right? Reverse the process, right? And they were sewing on their foreskins back on and stuff like that to blend in, to fit in. What does the scripture say? Why trimmest thou ways? Oh, let me grab it. I ain't said it for a while. Trim ways. This is Jeremiah 2:33. Why trimmest thou thy way to seek love? And this is what they were doing. They were trying to seek love of the heathen. They wanted to be like the heathen, like Louis in the Jungle Book. They wanted to be like you. They wanted to be like the heathen, and so they did what they could to fit in and to blend with them, to be a part of their societies and shit. Right? So they just completely did away with being an Israelite, and they wanted to become Greeks and wanted to become heathenistic. So in verse 15 here, it says, and made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant, cast it behind them, and joined themselves to the heathen and were sold to do mischief, right? So they made themselves heathen. So they became strangers. They became Gentiles. They became these things. That's why when the scripture speaks about the Gentiles being, brought in and all that kind of stuff, it's talking about these Israelites that were lost to us because they went and left their own customs, and they had to be brought back. Or the elect men would be brought back from all these different nations and kindreds and tongues and, etc., etc. Right? This is what the prophecy is all about. This is what's being fulfilled. Okay? Not that the Most High opened the doors to anybody that will listen. The Lord's not desperate. Tell you this, the Lord isn't desperate. You don't you don't need the whole world. You don't need acknowledgement or acceptance from the whole world. No, he just wants his people back, right? And it begins with his elect. He don't want or need anybody else, right? He chose the people already, and he's going to stick by that because that's what he promised, right? So these are the men that are being drawn back into this salvation, right? And that's why, going back to the beginning, you got Hebrews there in Italy, right? Written to the Hebrews from Italy by Timothy. And that's why Cornelius is an example of this exact very exact thing. You know, very exact thing. Yeah, same thing, right? This is the example of that. Cornelius is an Israelite. Okay, and that's what is what the scriptures determine. That's what he is. Okay, we don't have to make no assumption. This is what the scripture already set out the parameters. Set up the stage for this to happen, for the Israelites and these stranger Israelites to come back. These are the Gentiles the Lord is bringing back. These Israelites, like I said, that were lost to us. All right. So I'm going to end it there. Long one has been edifying. And I'll catch you guys on the next video. Until next time, I'll say shalom.